The following day, after the strange encounter in the forest, Adwoa could hardly sleep. The words of the mysterious woman echoed in her mind. The pain you feel is real, but it is not forever. What did it mean? And what was this power that the river stone could bring? She couldn't help but wonder if it had been some kind of dream, but the warmth of the stone, now safely tucked in her pouch, reminded her that it was no fantasy. The weight of the previous day's events had lifted her heart slightly, but uncertainty still gripped her. She had to know more about the river stone, how it worked, and what it could truly do. Her thoughts kept returning to the river, the mystical place where the wise woman had sent her, where everything had begun to change. Adwoa had spent her whole life hearing the stories of the river that flowed through the forests, known to the Ashanti as a sacred place where wisdom and ancient knowledge could be found. It was said that the river held a power, a hidden energy that could only be revealed by those with a pure heart, unclouded by malice or greed. But few dared to venture there, as the river was deep and mysterious, and many feared the tales of what had been lost in its currents. The next morning, Adwoa decided she would go to the river, carrying the river stone with her. She knew that this journey could change everything, that the answers she sought might finally reveal themselves. She told her father she was going to gather herbs in the forest, a task she had done many times before. Kojo, ever so trusting, nodded with a gentle smile. "Be safe, Adwoa," he said. "We'll be waiting for you here." The village was quiet as she passed through, the air cool with the morning breeze. Adwoa's heart raced as she walked through the familiar paths of the forest. She could feel the anticipation building with every step, as though the earth itself was guiding her. After walking for what felt like hours, the dense trees began to part, and the sound of flowing water reached her ears. She followed the sound, heart pounding in her chest, until she found herself standing at the edge of a river. The water was deep and dark, flowing steadily, but its surface shimmered as though it held something far deeper than just water. Adwoa's eyes narrowed, trying to see beyond the surface, but all she could make out was the vastness of the river. Adwoa took a deep breath, clutching the river stone tightly in her hand. As her fingers brushed its smooth surface, she remembered the wise woman's words. The truth it reveals may not always be easy to accept. Adwoa knew this was her test. She didn't know what she was about to see, but she felt that this was the moment that would shape her future. Without hesitating, she stepped into the river, feeling the cool water lap at her ankles. It was a strange sensation, like the water was both calm and alive, as if it was welcoming her into its depths. She continued until the water reached her waist, then stood still, looking down at the stone in her hand. As she held the stone above the water, it began to glow, soft light spreading across the surface of the river. The air grew still, and a quiet voice seemed to rise from the water itself. "Adwoa," the voice said, echoing in her mind, "you seek truth, but are you ready to face it?" Her breath caught in her throat. This wasn't a dream, it was real. The river was speaking to her, guiding her towards something she wasn't fully prepared to understand. "Yes," she whispered, her voice trembling. "I am ready." The water seemed to shimmer more brightly now, and before Adwoa could fully comprehend what was happening, the river's surface rippled. In an instant, the image of her stepmother, Akua, appeared, as if conjured by the river itself. But it wasn't just any image. This was an image of Akua as she truly was, stripped of the facade of beauty and grace she had always shown. Adwoa watched, wide-eyed, as the image of Akua transformed into a shadowy figure, her true nature revealed. A woman consumed by greed, envy, and bitterness. The image shifted again, showing Akua plotting behind her back, secretly scheming to keep Adwoa in servitude while planning to elevate her own daughter, Isi, at all costs. The river's voice returned, this time more urgent. "Look beyond the surface, child. What do you see?" Adwoa's heart pounded in her chest as she saw the dark truth unfold before her. She had always known that her stepmother's cruelty came from jealousy, but seeing it so clearly, laid out before her, was something else entirely. Afia's cruelty wasn't just about her hatred for Adwoa. It was about her deep fear of losing control, of losing the power that her beauty and manipulation had granted her. Afia was not the loving mother she had pretended to be. She was a woman who had sold her soul for comfort and status. Adwoa's hands trembled as she gripped the stone tighter, feeling a sense of shock and anger surge within her. She had seen the truth now. Her stepmother's malice and envy were the root of her pain. And yet, at the same time, Adwoa felt something shift inside of her. The river's voice spoke again, softer now, but with a note of finality. "What will you do with this truth, Adwoa?" Adwoa stood still for a long moment, contemplating the question. "I will face her," Adwoa said aloud, her voice steady. "I will confront her and take back my future. I will not be controlled by fear or lies anymore." The river stone's glow faded, and Adwoa felt a deep sense of peace settle within her. She turned and walked back toward the shore, her heart lighter than it had been in months. The forest no longer seemed so ominous, and the journey ahead no longer felt impossible. Adwoa had found her strength, and now she was ready to face whatever came next. When she reached the doorway of her father's house, she paused. Inside, the dim glow of the firelight flickered through the window, casting a warm glow on the wall. She could hear Afia's voice, smooth and persuasive, as she spoke with Essie in the next room. The sound of her stepmother's voice had once sent a shiver down her spine, but now it merely stirred a sense of resolve within her. Adwoa knew that her confrontation with Afia could not be postponed any longer. "Ah, Adwoa, you've returned," Afia said sweetly. "And I see you found your way back from the river. I hope you've learned something useful there, child." Adwoa stepped inside, her gaze unwavering as she met Afia's eyes. "I have learned much," she said quietly but firmly. "And I've come to realize that the truth is more powerful than any of your lies." Afia's smile faltered for just a second, but she quickly recovered. "Lies, you say?" "I think you are confused, my dear. The world is filled with truths and half-truths. You're still young. You have much to learn." Adwoa's heart beat faster, but she forced herself to stay calm. She wasn't going to let her stepmother manipulate her this time. "I have learned that you've been hiding your true nature from us, that you've used your power to break us apart, to make me feel less than, to tear this family apart for your own selfish gain. You speak of things you don't understand," she said, her voice low, threatening. "You think you know me, but you know nothing. You're just a girl and you'll always be a girl. I am the one who holds the power in this house." Adwoa stood tall. "I may be a girl, but I'm no longer the frightened child you think I am. I've seen your cruelty, and I'm not afraid of you anymore." Essie, who had been silent until now, looked at Adwoa with wide eyes, confusion written all over her face, asked quietly,
"Mother, what's going on? Why is Adwoa talking to you this way?"
Afia turned to her daughter. She snapped with her expression hardening.
"Stay out of this, Essie. This doesn't concern you."
But Adwoa could see the hesitation in her stepmother's eyes. For the first time, Afia seemed unsure of herself. Adwoa said, with a steady voice,
"I am not the only one who sees the truth, Afia. The people in this village know what you've done. They know how you've treated me and Akua. They've seen your lies, your manipulations. It's time for you to face the consequences of your actions."
"You think you can bring me down? You think the villagers will believe you? I will make sure no one stands with you. No one will listen to your lies."
But even as she spoke, her words seemed to lose their force. Adwoa had no fear left in her. The weight of the river stone still pulsed in her pocket. "I'm not lying, Afia," Adwoa said calmly, "and I'm not afraid of you anymore. You've controlled this house with fear for too long, but I will no longer let you control me."
"You're making a grave mistake, Adwoa. You think you can turn things around. You will regret this."
But Adwoa stood her ground. "I will not regret it. This is the moment I take back my life." Years passed and a great drought struck the village, testing the patience of its people. Desperate, the king of the land declared a challenge. Anyone who could solve the mystery of the drought would be granted unimaginable wealth and power. Word spread quickly, but the solution could only be found by someone who understood the deeper truths of nature: the river, the forest, and the earth's forces. Adwoa, having studied the ways of the land and learned the wisdom passed down by her mother and the elders, knew she was the one to answer the king's call. Her journey had been one of quiet preparation, filled with dedication and understanding. She was not just ready to end the drought. She sought to restore the balance between the land and the people who had forgotten their connection to nature. When Adwoa stepped forward to take on the challenge, the crowd fell silent. The villagers were shocked. It wasn't who they expected. Her father, Kojo, stood at the edge of the square, his heart filled with pride and fear. Adwoa's strength had always been clear to him, but this was a challenge unlike any other. As she stood before the king, Adwoa's voice rang out with clarity and conviction. She explained that the drought wasn't simply a natural occurrence. The king, though intrigued, was skeptical.
You claim to have the solution, young one? What makes you think you can solve the drought when so many others have failed?
I do not only seek to stop the drought, Your Majesty. I seek to restore balance to the land. The drought is not just a natural occurrence, it is the consequence of imbalance. The land itself is suffering because the people have forgotten their connection to nature.
And what, pray tell, do you propose to do? And what exactly is your plan?
I will seek the truth of the land. I will travel to the river where wisdom flows. I will seek the deeper cause of this drought, and I will return with the solution.
King agreed, though warned her that failure would bring dire consequences. With the river stone in her possession, Adwoa ventured into the forest. The path seemed clearer this time, and the forest seemed to embrace her, whispering its secrets. Upon reaching the river bank, she stepped into the cool waters, feeling the energy of the river guide her. It was then that the voice of the river's guardian spoke to her, revealing the truth. The drought wasn't caused by the earth. It was a reflection of the people's broken hearts. Only by restoring unity and healing the rifts between the villagers would the drought end. Adwoa returned to the village with a powerful message of reconciliation. She called for the villagers to gather, and with wisdom and compassion, urged them to let go of their fear, jealousy, and greed. Through unity and a renewed connection to nature, the drought was finally ended. The river flowed once again, the earth blossomed, and Adwoa emerged as a true leader. Her courage and wisdom saving not only the land, but her people as well. Adwoa's solution, bringing the village together, began to show results. With her leadership, not only had the land started to heal, but the villagers' hearts softened as they worked side by side to restore balance. Adwoa's wisdom, compassion, and unity had transformed the village, earning her the respect and admiration of the people. However, there was still one obstacle to overcome: Afia, the wicked stepmother. Once a dominant force in the village, Afia's influence had started to fade as her manipulative ways no longer swayed the people. She watched as her daughter, Essie, was overshadowed by Adwoa's strength and wisdom, which filled her heart with jealousy. In her desperation, Afia spread rumors, trying to convince the villagers and elders that the drought was not over, and that only she could restore the prosperity they once had. Despite this, Adwoa remained resolute. One morning, as she gazed upon the river, her father, Kojo, approached with grave news. Afia was scheming to take credit for the village's recovery. He warned her to be careful, as Afia would stop at nothing to regain control.
Adwoa, there are whispers. Afia has been speaking to the elders, trying to convince them that the drought is still a sign of divine anger. She claims that we have not done enough to appease the gods. And now, she wants to take the leadership from you, to take credit for the healing.
The next day, in the village square, the confrontation between Adwoa and Afia unfolded. Afia, with her calculated words, tried to undermine Adwoa's achievements, claiming that only through greater sacrifices could the drought be ended. But Adwoa, standing firm and confident, spoke the truth. The land was healing because of unity, not fear or sacrifice. She refused to let Afia manipulate the village any longer. Afia, enraged by the challenge, accused Adwoa of dishonoring their ancestors. The villagers, however, stood with Adwoa, seeing through Afia's lies. The real turning point came when Esi, Afia's daughter, finally stepped forward. No longer willing to live in her mother's shadow, Esi stood by Adwoa's side, declaring that the village needed healing, not just the land but their hearts. With her support, Afia's power crumbled and the village rallied behind Adwoa. The drought ended as the people of the village worked together, clearing fields, planting crops and reconnecting with nature. The river flowed freely once more and the land began to breathe again. Adwoa's leadership had saved the village and the power of unity had triumphed over division, greed and fear. Afia, stripped of her influence, was left wandering with no support, her ambitions unfulfilled. Adwoa, with the wisdom of the river stone and the support of her people, stood ready to lead the village into a new future of peace, prosperity and harmony. The lesson of unity had been learned, and Adwoa had proven that true strength comes from within, and through compassion and courage, even the greatest challenges can be overcome. Adwoa stood in the village square, watching the first rays of sunlight. Adwoa had transformed from a girl overshadowed by cruelty to the strong leader her village needed. With her family by her side and the village united, she faced the future with hope. The land was healed, the drought ended, and balance was restored. Adwoa knew the journey wasn't over, but with her wisdom and strength, the future was bright. Thanks for watching. Please help us by subscribing to our channel. Let us know what you think in the comments. Until next time, bye.